There's a piece by J. Christian Adams at PJ Media. I want you to know some of the people who are behind this whole bathroom fiasco that came out of the United States Department of Injustice and the Department of No Education. These slimeball leftist lawyers who are working in the shadows, putting together their little letters and threats, whose salaries and pensions and health care you're paying for, and same with their family members. Every single one of the new attorney hires, Adams writes about this Civil Rights Division, were radical leftists or partisans. Every single one. The complaint filed by North Carolina had Justice Department lawyers from the Employment Litigation section as well as other DOJ Civil Rights Division sections. And he says the lawsuits aimed at North Carolina intended to create a federal civil right for men to use women's bathrooms and locker rooms. So who are these people, some of the lawyers who are involved in this? This Justice Department Civil Rights Division section, the Employment Litigation section. Chief Delora Kennebrew. Who is Chief Delora Kennebrew, chief of the unit? She heads this employment section. She hails from Savannah, Georgia. She was president of the Black Law Student Association at Mercer University's Law School in Macon, Georgia. Now, under her, the employment section has pursued case after case against fire departments and other municipal entities, forcing them to abandon qualification tests where blacks and Hispanics scored lower than whites. Other settlements have forced municipalities to pay tens of thousands of dollars for using qualification tests for fire and police jobs, because obviously we don't want qualified people in those jobs if leftists have their way. One case she oversaw against Austin, Texas, forced the city to set aside 30 jobs for black and Hispanic applicants. Kennebrew is listed as the point of contact in the letter North Carolina received from the Justice Department this month. That means she's the central manager on the matter. Kennebrew is most certainly a member of the senior executive service. That means that an incoming Trump administration can move her after January 2017 to any other federal agency in any part of the country, such as the National Weather Service in Duluth. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, as somebody who's had to deal with matters like this, it's going to take a small army of smart lawyers to do this throughout the federal government, because we've talked about this before. Under the radar, what the Obama administration has done, they've populated every single department and agency with scores and scores of these radical leftist lawyers. So a Trump administration is going to have to figure out how to yank them out. Otherwise, their policies will be sabotaged. It's that simple. Who else? Candace Phoenix. Candace Phoenix is also on the complaint that sues North Carolina. Her resume noted her senior thesis was devoted to a case study of race and FedEx Field. Race and FedEx Field, the football stadium where the Washington Redskins play. Phoenix majored in comparative ethnic studies at Columbia, where she was a columnist for the student paper. You can read her writings, her favorite topics, race, and race. In a column she titled, Not Me, Hear Ye, All Negroes, she wrote about President George Bush's bogus visit to Howard University. Here's what she wrote, according to PJ Media's Christian Adams. Quote, Bush was ecstatic to be able to visit the Negroes on such an important occasion. Needless to say, Bush was not well received, which was to be expected given his recent 2% approval rating among African Americans. One of my classmates said, it's best when she complained that having Bush on campus was like inviting the master to the slave cabins for dinner. Phoenix also penned, It was raining Oreos, which refers to former RNC chairman Michael Steele. With a racial epithet, she wrote, What I learned from white people at Howard. She learned the best ones are race traitors. She also wrote, I'm black, which stated, Our curriculum places disproportionate importance on white scholars and effectively denies the importance of scholars of color. This is now a lawyer working on your behalf, taxpayer subsidized, in the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department of the United States. Yes, writes Chris. We heard it all before, Christian. But these are the sort of views held by lawyers earning six-figure taxpayer-funded salaries to fundamentally transform America. The race-soaked discontent with America no longer is confined to crackpots on campus. Phoenix's qualifications didn't even end with her tiresome critical race studies dogma. She was an activist from the start. Phoenix served as the United Students of Color campus liaison at Columbia, a real office. She served as the events chair for the American Constitution Society, a left-wing lawyers club that has mostly failed in its efforts to match the heft and influence of the Federalist Society. She worked with the left-wing Election Protection Organization, which funnels potential plaintiffs towards civil rights organizations. She also did a stint with the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, an organization that routinely fights election integrity laws like voter ID. Christian Adams goes on. Buckle up, he says. After a Danish cartoonist was nearly murdered by an Islamist with an axe, Phoenix wrote to the Washington Post, do Muslims really have avenues to express their discontent by what we consider normal democratic means? And if they do we listen? Phoenix started a DOJ less than a year ago. She worked there. She started there, which means she hasn't vested into civil service protections and can also be moved by a new administration. What they ought to do is hire this Christian Adams to handle these things. Then there's Elisa Fillo. Fillo hired was in October of last year. She was co-president of Women of Stanford Law, an organization with a social justice committee that organizes donation-based efforts in social justice programming at Stanford Law School. She clerked for First Circuit Court of Appeal Judge Sandra Lynch, appointed by Clinton, and Federal Judge Keith Ellison, appointed by Clinton. Fillo also began her tenure at Justice less than a year ago. She, too, has not vested her employment. Then there's Nadia Syed. Syed was a fellow at Equal Justice America, but her real civil rights division bona fides came from her time spent at the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. The Chicago Lawyers Committee was originally designed to end official discrimination, but it's since morphed into a Tides Foundation, Soros-funded leftist organization pushing radical legal theories. The group has opposed election integrity measures. It has deployed teams of lawyers to polling locations, ostensibly to protect voting rights, but in practice to help Democrats. Then there's Christina Chung. Christina Chung says she worked as a political consultant prior to her hiring at the Justice Department last year. See how they're loading up this department with these people? Since becoming a Justice Department lawyer, she's also become a Hillary Clinton donor. When working with Gloria Allred in private practice, Chung was involved in attempts to torque campus sexual assault cases against universities such as Boise State. That complaint said colleges are required to take proactive measures to prevent sexual harassment and violence, and that the mere presence of an accused perpetrator on campus gives rise to a sexually hostile atmosphere. What a conga line of left-wing kooks. Not done. Want to hear more? These are the people behind your North Carolina lawsuit. And many more. Sexton, Richard Sexton, he came to the Justice Department from the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Now, while at the EEOC, he brought cases against businesses such as ServiceMaster, Terminix, Subway Franchise, and prison management companies. Catherine Sellers, she worked at Legal Voice, a group in Seattle dedicated to transgender rights, protecting reproductive justice, and advancing economic justice. The resume Sellers submitted to the Justice Department for employment consideration documents her time at Yale University Art Gallery. Wrote Sellers, recruited diverse student groups to co-host gallery events and organize Yale Liberal Party debate on art repatriation. Art repatriation? Day Without Art event, recognizing LBGT artists and a collaborative tour focusing on women's issues. What's wrong with just art? When did that change? She was involved in the Immigrant Families Advocacy, and it goes on and on and on. So you can see what Obama, what's happening in these departments and agencies is the hiring, and by the way, not just lawyers, but on all levels of the bureaucracy, the most radical, hostile, in my view, anti-American types conceivable. Many of them with thin records, some of them with very thick records, placing them in positions where they can harass the American people, harass American business, harass the states. And so here we have it. The bathroom controversy, such as it is, created by the federal government, as well as local political hacks in these various cities and communities. And so North Carolina steps in to try and protect what is traditional. Men go over there, women go over there. And that's said to be controversial. That's said to be like Selma, Alabama.